Our next speaker is Mr. Jack Breen.
On October 2nd, 1983, Carl Yastrzemski, the Yaz, played his last career baseball game for the Boston Red Sox. I remember my dad telling me that he went to this game with his father, which would end up being the last game they went together. A few weeks later, my grandfather had a massive heart attack and passed away, just before my dad's 12th birthday. Growing up, my grandfather was never really a topic of conversation. There were occasional stories here and there, but I would never be able to pick him out of a picture. I know that he worked hard to support his family. He worked operating the Green Monster scoreboard as a teenager, and that he climbed telephone poles for a living to fix electricity lines. His family always came first, and he did whatever he needed to do to support them, whether it was going to night school to get his college degree or working long, hard days to put food on the table. My dad was the much younger brother of four boys, and luckily he had them to look up to after my grandfather passed away. This year on Mother's Day, my dad and I traveled down to see my grandmother and drop her off food and presents. We could tell that she was lonely, as she's always out and about, but COVID prevented her from her normal routine. My dad and I always ended our trips to Stoughton with a visit to Town Spa Pizza. In my opinion, the best pizza in the state. It seemed like an ordinary trip to Town Spa. My dad came back with the pizzas, put them in the backseat of the car, business as usual. We pulled out of the parking lot onto the main road. To go back to the highway, it's a left. But this time, my dad didn't turn his blinker on. He went straight into the cemetery. As a young child, I remember going to the cemetery occasionally with my dad, but I had no vivid memories of what we would do and where we would go. This time was different. It had been years since I had last been here, and I do not know the last time my dad had been here. We pulled right in, knowing exactly where to go, and I saw in the corner plot the name Breen with Charles J. printed below. He parked the car. I froze and watched. It started to dribble, and the droplets raced down the side of the window, but this did not stop him from rolling his window down. We sat there for a few minutes, and for the first time that I can remember, I saw my dad pray outside of church. I sat there silently, not knowing what to do. As I mentioned before, my grandfather was rarely a topic of discussion. I waited and let my dad break the silence, and choked up, he said, "Where are the flowers? My mom always has flowers here." I was silent for the hour car ride home. Growing up, my dad coached me in every sport, whether it was baseball, basketball, or football. I was always able to look at the sidelines, and I knew he would be there. He was always giving me and my teammates advice and cheering us on. No matter what, win or lose, he would always be the same person after every game. His passion and drive to see my teammates succeed on and off the field does not go unnoticed, and is something that we all still appreciate to this day, years after having him as a coach. He would never miss a practice, game, team gathering. He's the definition of a team player, doing whatever is asked of him to help my friends and I succeed. On a hot summer day, I got home from summer camp and walked into my room where my dad had his bag and his work stuff in his hands. "I lost my job today. Now I will get to spend a lot of time with the two of you," he said to my brother and I. I remember the look in his eyes as he struggled to keep back his tears. Over the next year, I was able to spend every day hanging out with him. In the summer, he would play catch with me, throw me batting practice, go to the beach with us as a family. Once the fall hit, our focus shifted from baseball to flag football. With my dad running the offense and having myself under center, we were a force to be reckoned with. And after a successful fall season, we moved our sights onto basketball. With my dad's time off, he was now able to coach me in basketball, something he had never done before. We were unstoppable, going week after week, never losing. After the buildup of these two seasons, we knew we were in for a good spring. This, being my first year of AAU baseball, the commitment of both players and coaches is very time consuming. My dad took this challenge head on, coaching my team with all of my friends from North Andover. The time he gave up to coach me and spend time with me during this year does not go unnoticed, and he did not stop this after he went back to work as he continued to coach me and made an effort to spend time with me every day. Growing up, I never had a so-called favorite number. Why would I need a favorite number? My dad always talked about what the number 44 meant to him. Not having my own favorite number made it hard for me to pick a number when playing on a team. I did not want to copy my brother or my dad, so I decided to go with the number 34, copying a different family member. Many people would ask me why 34, and they'd quickly answer with an, "Oh, right, Big Poppy." I would nod and smile, but this was not the case. My grandfather wore this number in his high school football days, and I chose that number to honor him. After Connor graduated from Brooks, there was a 4-month window when I did not yet have my license. My dad would drive me to school every day. The trip was short, and our car rides had a wide range of conversations. Some days they would be silent. Other days, we could talk about things that would go on for hours, but abruptly would end at the dining hall. These talks would usually be triggered by something we heard on the radio or a sports game or a moment. No matter how much we did or did not talk, we always had a routine to say each other at the end of each car ride. Bye. Have a good day. I love you. We said this every time without missing a beat. The best feeling in the world as a day student at Brooks is getting your license. All of a sudden, you have a new freedom with getting a car. After being so excited to get my car and my license, I never thought of what I would be missing out on. My once talkative car rides with the radio turned down turned into me driving with the radio all the way up. I no longer had the option to sit back and relax, but now I had to pay attention to what I was doing. And of course, our routine as he dropped me off at the dining hall was no longer possible. There are days that I miss these car rides where I could just sit back and talk to my dad, but I'm thankful that I had these moments with him. Every summer, my family makes many trips up to York Beach, where my cousins have a cottage. One day we happened to be talking to a neighbor about where they were from, and they answered with Southie in a very deep Boston accent. My dad's family has lived in Southie for years, and as it turned out, this man knew my grandfather. This is what he said about him. He was the toughest guy out there and was a very hard worker. There are no better ways than this to describe my dad and how he's influenced me. Nobody works harder than my dad, whether it was staying late at work or roughing a game. He gives 100% to whatever he puts his mind on, and he has instilled these values in me and is always pushing me to be the best version of myself I can be. No matter the situation, I know that my dad will do whatever is best for my family. Whether it's coaching my brother and I in a sporting team, reffing a football game every Friday night, or talking about life, he has always been there for me every step of the way. I think back to how my dad grew up. He didn't have his dad to lean on, to coach him, to drive him to school. I think my dad shares these experiences with Connor and I because he feels like he missed out on them himself. Growing up, I've been to many Red Sox games with my dad. We have a profound love for baseball and the Sox. When I'm at Fenway with my dad, I think about all the times he sat in the same stadium with my grandfather and the long hours that my grandfather would spend working the scoreboard in left field. I'm lucky to have my dad beside me at these games, and I know that my grandfather would be proud of the person and dad that my dad is today. Thank you.